And he's going to set this up for the recording for those that aren't around and didn't get to watch this, so you can go back to it as well. So if you do come up, anything you say will be recorded. And also remember, none of this can be seen as legal advice. None of this can be seen as financial advice. None of this can be seen as tax advice. Anything we say could have an impact on you. So please make sure you get your own advisors so they can specify things for your existing situation. I'm just going to invite Azad to co-host now. And yeah, if you'd like to come up onto the stage, then just put a request in now. We don't really have any particular way of doing this. We just first request tends to come through. I'm just going to make sure with Azad that he's got everything he needs for the recording, and we'll get started in a couple of minutes. Hey, Azad, you need to accept co-host. Okay, so we now have Azad as co-host. Azad, are you all good with the recording, or do you need a little bit more time?
No, it's all recording now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Okay, so we got several requests. Do you want to let some people up, Azad, and then we'll start taking some questions?
Okay, let's start with B. Tom Koss.
Greetings, and thank you for all you're doing. Just a quick question with regard to the current state of finances, and are you getting or seeing the kind of information you need to see?
I'm unable to comment on any non-public information, but in the public information, there has been always just a little bit of information missing that gives everything you need in order to piece it all together. I haven't checked. I believe that there was some more financial information released today, and I haven't actually had a chance to review that. In regards to non-public information, I'm unable to comment.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. You can kick me down.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Kibbs.
Hi there, Simon. I had a question. Given the new situation now with the resignment, does your plan in any way now change as to the best plan forward, or is everything still sort of on track with what you've said from, I guess, the beginning of this debacle?
I think the community has a really good idea of what a plan looks like. I think Celsius probably have a really good idea of what a plan looks like. I know we're very clear on what a plan looks like, and we look forward to working with whoever we need to work with in order to optimize and use the best of everyone's resources to put together whatever the best result is that we can achieve. And I'll push back at anything that I think is counter to that, and I'll push forward for anything that I think gets that. And everyone needs to appreciate that still all the same agreements apply. And if I can, when I can, I'll try and update you on how any of the dynamics are changed. I'm hopeful that this is a change in dynamics.
Okay, thank you. And also, I don't know if this is maybe a weird question or not, but I'm going to ask it anyways. And as a cell token holder, I've always been sort of throughout this process confused as to, okay, well, how would somebody possibly assign let's say, a dollar value to each cell token holder, so that it can be either whatever converted to equity or cash, or is it just equal to zero? Like, I don't know if you have still evolving thoughts around cell token or how it might be implemented in a plan that you can may or may not share.
Yeah, so, in order to get this plan signed off by the Unsecured Creditors Committee, and after the Unsecured Creditors Committee, all creditors, it has to take into factor all people that have a stake in the equation. Those that hold cell token on the app are creditors, and I believe that they should be treated as every other creditor. And so therefore, how do you price it? Well, I've been trying to talk about this from day one, and every time I talk about it, I've been accused of trying to manipulate the price or FUD or all sorts of stuff. But it's a real conversation, so we need to have it. One model, which I don't think is very fair at all, is just to price it at what would happen if you released the tokens onto the market, which I believe would be something north of zero. And another model is to take, let's look at the history. What's the fair? Well, there was an ICO. It had certain value. Another is to take an average price. And I do believe that this is something that has to really factor in, these different models in order to, if there is some kind of conversion and a dollarized value, which in bankruptcy there always is a dollarized value, then those will need to be considered. And I think the community will have lots of ideas, and one idea will have to stick in the end, and it will be the judge, the UCC, and the creditors that ultimately decide whether it gets through. So I believe that that's really all the things I've had throughout Twitter. I released several debates on how to do it, but people kept accusing of like I'm trying to short the market or something like that. And I just want to repeat for the record, I have never bought, I have never sold, I have never shorted, I have never traded cell token. And I knew that many of the things that are going to be released into investigations are going to be around some of those questionable activities. And if I was ever involved in any of those questionable activities, it would ruin my position in trying to support the community as it has for Alex.
All right. Yeah, no, thanks very much, Simon. I think another possible approach to valuation of that cell token, perhaps, I don't know if it's even reasonable, maybe it's just outlandish of an idea, but if people can somehow justify or prove what their purchase price was, maybe that would be a good metric. That it's kind of valued at the price you bought it for, or if you bought it maybe OTC or something, you've got records to prove these things. That to me sounds like an interesting.
Yeah, you can
approach.
look at, if you want precedent, just look at SEC settlement actions with those that have issued tokens, and then they told them that it was an unregistered security and needed to implement some kind of refund. There's precedent. But it's an absolute nuisance, a pain in the arse. And, remember, the challenge with this is that the higher the price of cell token, the more everyone else's credits get diluted in a recovery. The lower the price, the more cell token holders get shafted, who arguably were the people that really were engaged into this and misrepresented into this to the higher degree. So, do they deserve a one-way bet? I don't know. I don't think I've got all the answers yet.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your answers, and appreciate your efforts, and I'll step down.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's bring on Plan C.
Oh, I think there might have been some other people ahead of me. Maybe they should go first.
Okay, let's bring on Deep.
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me clearly?
We can hear you, Deep. Yeah, bit rusty, but go for it.
Yeah, good day, Simon. I'll come straight to the point. The recent resignation letter that we received that is publicly out now from Mashinsky, it clearly says that I resign as a CEO, but I still remain as a director. What are the implications of that?
All directors get an equal vote at the table. So whether you're a CEO or a non-CEO, not legal advice, but a director is a director and they get a vote at the table. So if it turns out that he remains a director, then he gets a director vote.
Okay, so now instead of two votes, he gets one vote. Is that right?
Again, not a lawyer, so don't take it as legal advice. But a director is a director. You're not CEO, and if you're CEO and director, it's still one director vote.
Exactly. So that's what I was wondering, that if he is not the CEO anymore, but still the director, so what difference would it make? How is it a good step then?
Yeah, well, I don't believe that. Yeah, it's a good step to remain as a director or a CEO. They're both the same thing to me.
So this news is actually not that good news as everybody is,
You're actually
spreading
bringing
it all
this
over
to
the Twitter.
you're actually bringing this to my attention live. So I didn't actually read that part. So thank you for sharing that with me. So yes,
Okay,
it may not
okay.
be the news that we thought it was. I'd have to actually do
All
that.
right.
Maybe if someone's reading it in real time, they could confirm as well. I know the UCC released
I
a
can speak to
notice. I
that.
haven't had time. Yeah, if
I
someone
can
could.
clarify. I'm sorry, I could just clarify one detail because I just read it. He's staying a director of Celsius Network Ltd. When I looked up what the difference is with the Ltd component, it says it's something a bit more about the software involved. So I'm not sure how to interpret that, but that wasn't really why I had my hand up, but I'll throw that out there.
Okay, cool. So it's not quite as bullish as I thought it was.
It's not
I can
LLC, it's Ltd. But let me just get to my question, and everyone else can chime in about what Celsius Network Ltd is. Like I said, when I Googled it, it just said something about the software provided for something to do with cryptocurrency and lending and whatnot. But anyway,
Just to
my
quickly add more
question is,
context to this, since we're on the topic, this is the UK entity that holds over $500 million of STE and $500 million plus of wrapped Bitcoin and Bitcoin. So it's something to be very much concerned about. Over $1.3 billion of non-cell tokens and $500 million of cell tokens that he's director of. That's some context.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
okay,
even I
so
read some tweets which clearly said that Celsius Network Ltd Limited is the UK-based one which holds all the STE positions. So I thought I should better bring this up in the spaces so that we can get more clarity on it.
okay, so
Okay.
Simon
Yeah.
could research the LTT component. But so my question is this, Simon, I know it's no secret your product in El Salvador is going to involve getting yield over like a 10-year play. And so it's just my hunch, which I'm not opposed to or whatnot, if that is in part of your plan, which I know you can't speak to. But my question about that is, because I'm just going to go on a hunch that there's some involvement. You mentioned you did get on a plane, you went to El Salvador to kind of maybe come up with some ideas and whatnot and how it could all work together, which I'm all for. But my question is, if that's an El Salvador entity being involved in your entity, what would the likelihood that the UCC and or the judge sign off on things when there's components that are sort of outside of the US jurisdiction? Because I know on the Twitter space you just had, or I'm sorry, the YouTube space, you mentioned something about maybe a new UCC or a new group speaking and collaborating with the UCC to move forward now that, Alex is stepping down. And so I'm just curious, how does that shake out, either the new entity that works with the UCC and or the UCC and the judge signing off on plans that are involving things outside the US?
Yeah. So just to be clear, we're setting up multiple structures. It's not a dependency. So, that's one of the things that we can utilize. But if El Salvador is a bit too exotic, then we've also got our US structure. And the way that we've always done stuff at Bank to the Future is we've used the laws in the country that the investor resides in order to optimize the position for them. So, we've been doing that for a long time as well.
Got it. So that's not
So
an obstacle.
we
of
have
sorts.
multiple applications to include. Bank to the Future has been a high net worth business up until this side because we've been working on regulatory reforms, and for over 10 years now we've been looking at how to make it securities laws more inclusive, and we're at the end of some of those, and we've got additional license applications, but these are the ones that are going to be available in a timely fashion.
And regarding FTX, I mean, is there a way that FTX would want to work with you with the Voyager situation, or have you already been sort of given the no thumbs up signal? Or I'm just wondering what play you may have with that side of the business.
I haven't spoken to FTX about Voyager.
Do you want to?
I remain available in service. I'm not a creditor, I'm not a shareholder, but we have a lot of resources. And if FTX wants to issue equity to a lot of shareholders, then we've got all the technology and resources and everything they would need in order to make that a seamless process.
Got it. And you don't think Binance would have any complications involving with their entities and a U.S. entity like Celsius if there was any sort of like play there?
There's a lot of geopolitics at the moment between Binance, US, and and I believe that that really factored into why FTX was the one. But FTX, from public information, had the debt, that they could utilize. They had more tools, they had more resources, and more synergy in order to put together an effective recovery plan. Just to the nature. And although it's being pitched as a $1.4 billion check, it's a $100 million check, not a 1.4 billion, because the assets are the assets at the bottom of the market. So it's not require someone to write a $1.4 billion check. That's all the credits.
So they only had to come up with 115 million to make this deal happen, roughly.
Yeah, it's like if you were buying a company and they had $1 billion of cash, you got to think about the post-cash valuation as opposed to, you don't pay a premium for cash.
Then how could anyone put a proper offer towards Celsius with no understanding the valuation of the Bitcoin mining business?
So if I were you, I'd be looking for a lot more transparency on that. And I think the UCC, from what I can see, have been working aggressively to try and get the information that people need in order to have a bit more transparency on how that can be utilized to support creditors.
I think that was the red herring in all this Celsius talk. Thanks to Anthony and Otis, they were able to sort of raise a lot of awareness for us just about the value with that sort of component of the business. And I feel like that's what I want clarity from moving forward with the UCC, because I feel that's been the most secret sort of, dirty secret in all this, that could be our little golden goose. So I know you've talked about it. You seem to have come around more to feeling that the Bitcoin mining business has more value than maybe in the beginning. I don't want to speak for you, but it seems like we're all kind of waiting to see the needle and how that's moved along, because in Voyager, they didn't have that component in their business.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony's been doing a lot of work. He's here as a speaker as well. He can talk to it in a second. I got people that really know what they're talking about in Texas mining that have been doing it for years, that run big operations there. And I took the time to go out and meet some of the people that control approximately 20% of the hash rate, that are working on IPOs and all sorts of stuff right now. So if those assets are ready to be deployed for the benefit of creditors, then there's certain information that's needed in order for them to assess that. And once that information is available, then I think that there's something that can be used.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a debate between your team, Anthony's people, and the UCC to feel like we're all understanding that the proper value is being associated, because that might be the thing that differentiates our recovery plan from like a Voyager. Anyway, thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing more information. Thank you.
Pleasure. Anthony, did you want to say something about mining?
No, I was just going to say, theirs is pretty complex because they have multiple hosting facilities, from what I understand through relationships that I have in the industry, of how their operations set up. So it's definitely complex, but as you guys know, it could definitely have tremendous value if ran properly and set up for the next bull market, as we talked. I think we're all pretty much on the same page with that. I understand exactly what I am valuation of companies, which could be a powerful thing for credit.
Sorry, Anthony. If you're driving, I think it's a bit of a bad line. Yeah, we've got a shit line. Once you got some good line, come back on. The elephant in the room with mining is obviously that on October the 6th, I think it is, or October the 7th, there's a motion that's been filed in order to put together a preference shareholder committee, and they're going to put forward their case that they believe that they should have the upside of that just due to the way it was structured. And that would go deep into discovery around, was it actually structured as a separate entity? Well, it began with an acquisition, is my understanding. So this is all public information. And so maybe it was set up separately, but it would go deep into discovery if we're going down that route of, was some of the funds used from creditors in order to invest in that? Was it represented to Westcap as not an investment in the whole company, but an investment in the mining? What are the agreements around that? So these are all gonna come out, and the judge needs to make a ruling on who gets to benefit from the mining, and that really all comes down to how does Celsius set it up. Okay, who wants to come on next?
So let's bring on Cam Cruz, who recorded the second time that Alex Mashinsky came in your Twitter space.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly wanted to bring up the quote unquote resignation, which is not quite a resignation, which I'm not sure if anybody should be surprised that Alex doesn't, or is seemingly incapable of doing what he says he's doing. But the fact that he's going to remain on as a director of this UK entity that contains probably about half of the recovery or recoverable assets available, I think should be alarming for everybody on this call who is either a creditor or affiliated with creditors.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a bit of a Debbie Downer for me. I think that does put the dynamics pretty similar to where we were.
Yep.
I guess we got ahead of ourselves, Azad. We saw the headline.
Well, I mean, some of the most popular influence out there, CoffeeZilla, he's just he's got his pulse on this, and he's just confirmed what we believed was the case. But hey,
the one
Okay,
good thing
all
with
right.
Alex
So there's
is
still a battle.
he can teach everybody that they need to read the fine print when dealing with them.
Absolutely, thank you.
all right, let's bring on Plan C now.
Yeah, I'll just be really quick because a couple of the previous people covered some of the stuff I wanted to say. Yeah, I think just in general, it became pretty clear from social media sentiment, comments on a lot of videos, that it was going to be very difficult for the debtor to get anything passed with Alex as CEO. And it seems like from what the UCC said in some of their statements that just came out, they basically agreed and felt the same way. Sounds like they looked at some information provided by the debtor and Alex, and they basically said, Alex shouldn't remain as CEO. So he stepped down / was kind of forced out. But my thing is, for all the people listening on this call and all the people on social media, I just want to make sure that this isn't just something, it isn't just the debtor or, the UCC or whatever, just being like, okay, there's not enough support for Alex. There's a plan would have a very hard time passing with Alex as a CEO, so we'll put him in another position or whatever. It's just, I think all those people that are creditors that just don't want Alex involved anymore, just make your voice heard. There's going to be these town halls. Speak up. Question the UCC. Say, what is Alex's role? what power does he have? What's his involvement? We're not going to be tricked this easy as far as a headline. I think everyone should dig. Everyone should ask questions. We should all just continue to look at the fine print, like was previously said, and make sure that the UCC and everyone's working in our best interests as all the creditors that just don't want Alex involved in this anymore. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I would agree. The UCC kind of forced Alex out, it looks like, and I don't think they would put him in any position of power after forcing him out as CEO.
Yeah, but if he is a director of the holdco, we're back to square one, unfortunately, and I've got everyone excited for no reason.
Yeah, I don't think the UCC would let that happen.
Okay, still work to be done. I need to catch up on everything, but yeah,
Simon, I have a follow-up question for you here. My name is Ed, about the IOUs.
Yeah.
As a investor in Celsius, etc., a lot of these places are mentioning IOUs potentially, or people are talking about it. Me personally, even though I've potentially lost a lot of my funds, I'm curious, is there a way for an outsider like I to invest into any of your products, buy into, like, where would I go to look into buying into potentially more IOUs to recover better 5-10 years from now? Because my time horizon isn't 12-24 months, it's 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Well, a standard is being built for these types of recoveries from the work we did at Bitfinex. And so at Bank to the Future, we offer high risk, high return opportunities for qualifying investors. So we have had a break for about a year or so while we work on additional licenses and upgrade regulations. We are imminent in announcing some of our next investment opportunities. So just make sure you got an account on Bank to the Future if you want to find out about these, and click the newsletter, and we'll send you investment deals as they come.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Everyone else.
Let's bring on Shillionaire.
Yes, thanks for everything you're doing, guys. My question is, I had a lot of altcoins on Celsius, like Uniswap tokens, Mana, Matic. I haven't heard much or seen much about where those are. They still showed up in the wallet as though they were on the blockchain. Was that an actual blockchain read?
What you see on your app is not reality. It's just a digital ledger of what they say they owe you. So it's like your credit. If you go to the last coin report, every single token had tokens missing apart from Cell token, if I'm correct. So if you have Matic, you don't have the same amount of Matic that you had before. That's showing on the app. So the app is showing. Not that. Yeah.
So it's showing on the blockchain that those I guess you could say wallets that held them are depleted.
Yeah, so you can see someone, the analysis has been done. People have shared all the Celsius wallets. If you want to go back through the tweets, they're there somewhere. And a coin report has been published. But there's always one bit of information missing that kind of gets you everything you need. So like the first one had the number of tokens of the top 4 and then everything other. And then the next one was just the dollar value, but not the number of coins. And I'm hoping the next one gives full information. And Alex never ceases to disappoint, but I thought that there was going to be transparent information now that we have restructuring people in charge. But it seems like we might be carrying on the same old game.
So we, like, say Mana, we wouldn't even know. I mean, with the
we do know that every coin apart from Cell token has missing coins. So you could go to the last coin report and it would tell you how many coins, how many Matic they own and how many Matic they have. And all of them had less assets, had deeper liabilities than assets.
And in a restructuring where we're trying to be made whole, are those mana tokens or matic tokens returned in that process? Or they, I was listening to Nuke talk in the leaked footage. It sounded like they just wanted to kind of funnel all things into the top 3 or top 4 tokens. What technically happens to these altcoins in a recovery process?
Yeah, and this gets into the regulatory side as well, because if you were to simplify the coins, which I think is personally, I think that's the right thing to do, then you would need to actually execute trades, which would be the us betting on the trading skills of the team, which would then hit into a new regulatory regime, and there'd have to be an approach for how those prices are executed. But the proposal on the recovery plan was to simplify those into the more pristine collateral, which is stable coins backed by dollars, ETH, and Bitcoin. And then they had a sell token element as well, which opens up a ginormous cans of worm for all sorts of problems.
Does that mean selling the remaining alts and just buying market, spot price Bitcoin?
That would be my guess of what the proposal was.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everything.
Hi, Simon. This is Yogesh Kukreja from India. So, my question is, whenever I see anything positive about recovery plans of Simon or something from creators community, so I'm always confused whether the plan is for the whole world or it is for US citizens. So, I mean, I at times feel that whatever
I
good
can
is
answer
going
that
to
easily.
happen,
Everybody.
everybody. So, whatever is going to
All
be the
credits,
treatment,
US, non-US.
the treatment is going to be similar for US and non-US citizens, because I feel underprivileged when I listen to reports like that something is happening and those would be for US citizens only. People living in India, people living in other countries, maybe in some parts of Europe or UAE. Those are those feel, and because there was some news in
Well,
between.
let me try and clarify. So
Yeah.
there's the reason people think that US and non-US are different. So firstly, the bankruptcy is in US and everyone's treated the same. Now, are there some legal nuances that might arise? Well, there may be, but that's not the main point to be concerned about. There are discussions which have happened in the past around how did this custody service come into existence? Well, it only came into existence because there was a regulatory crackdown that affected US investors, where they were treated as securities, and therefore they tried to make it compliant in the US for accredited investors. That whole process only affected US investors, but it's not that they're treating US and non-US differently in the recovery. It just means that those that were pushed into custody were 100% US. And then this opens up a bunch of confusion from people around, are they treating US and non-US differently? I'm not aware of anything where you would be treated differently, because you're from the US or you're not. In the case of clawback, so, Celsius and Kirkland wanted to reserve the right for clawbacks. And so it's more easily to enforce in US court if you're a US citizen than the process of overseas court. So that's one particular thing. So these are the different conversations that's been happening, but I wouldn't spend too much energy in thinking that US are going to be favored over non-US or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the explanation. I'm sure you and the creators community would work in best interest of whole community as the whole world. Thank you.
Yeah, let's bring back Anthony. I think Anthony had another something.
You guys hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. No, I was just saying before that I really think, there's two options here, right? Someone comes in and buys the whole company and fills everyone's bags. Possible, unlikely, but possible. And then the other option is, equity. And you could do an IOU token with equity or something like that. But at the end of the day, I think those are the only viable options. Looking at the Voyager situation specifically, they really didn't have any assets except customers, which customers are a very valuable asset, as you guys know, especially in financial businesses. So that is valuable, but they didn't have even a lending business. They didn't have a mining business, a custodial business. They didn't have any of these, hard assets that we like to say. They didn't really have anything except customers. And for an exchange, of course, it was an easy decision. You buy basically the platform. FTX really just paid $100 million, and then they're going to get all these customers put into their ecosystem, which they've spent almost $1 billion in advertisements with Major League Baseball, FTX Arena, and they couldn't get one customer. So it was a great business move to spend $100 million and acquire, hundreds of thousands of KYC customers. So for them, great business move, very intelligent. I just think the Celsius situation is a little different because of the assets. But I think those two options are the only viable way of, getting people their funds back, in my opinion. And then the Alex situation, you're probably not going to be able to remove him as a board seat at this time because he probably is the number one equity holder of the company. So I think that's the next stage of the process as we get farther down the road. But initially, I would assume the UCC has been pushing for him to step down and resign, which that's the first step. So we're making progress, but I don't think you have a quick fix with something like that because he is still the biggest equity holder in my belief. So that's the situation there.
Simon, did you actually read the tweet from Tiffany Fong about Alex Mashinsky's letter of resignation? I can read it out now, if that
Go for it.
works. So a tweet from Tiffany Fong. Alex Mashinsky's letter of resignation reads, effective immediately, please accept my resignation as CEO of Celsius Network Limited, Ltd, as well as my directorships and other positions at each of its direct and indirect subsidiaries, with the exception of my director position at Celsius Network Limited. I regret that my continued role as CEO has become an increasing distraction, and I'm very sorry about the difficult financial circumstances members of our community are facing. Since the pause, I have worked tirelessly to help the company and its advisors put forward a viable plan for the company to return coins to creditors in the fairest and most efficient way. I am committed to helping the company continue to flesh out and promote that plan in order to help account holders become whole.
Yeah, I'm ultra skeptical about that last board position. So I really question that. And I don't think it's genuine. I think it's disingenuous.
Okay, let's bring on Teutonium. Okay, let's bring on your crypto doctor. Or who's next? Who wants to speak?
Hey guys, thanks for that. Appreciate everything you're doing. Two things. One, Alex is staying on as a director, but he's only one of the directors on the board, right? So there's other people that should have say so besides him. So I don't think that him hanging around isn't as bad as him being CEO. I guess that's my personal opinion. But I have a question that may be more of a legal thing, which I don't know if we need to bring up David for this or not. But two things. One is this 120-day lockup that's been going on. Is that typical in a bankruptcy case? Because it seems unusual. Because Voyager's obviously solving their problem in under 120 days.
Yeah, so I'm not a bankruptcy expert because all my previous deals were really just focused on the structuring in different jurisdictions. But yeah, the 120 exclusivity I'm led to believe is a very normal process. But normally, they actually, here's David. David, do you want to speak to that?
What was the question?
Is the 120 days exclusivity normal?
Yes, it's embodied in the bankruptcy code that whenever a Chapter 11 is filed, the debtor gets 120 days to file a plan and 180 days to solicit acceptances on the plan. And that can be extended for cause, up to 18 months to file a plan and 20 months to solicit. So the window, that's why when people on Twitter are talking about this 120-day period and the expiration of it, my response as a bankruptcy lawyer is, 90 times out of 100, it's extended more than that. Now, this is truly a unique situation because of the allegations of fraud. But, in most mega Chapter 11 cases, exclusivity is continued. And even when it is not continued, a lot of times it's continued, but certain parties in interest have the ability to file a plan. So you could see in this case, exclusivity being continued with carve outs for the committee to file a plan, for the ad hoc committees maybe to file plans, and certain other constituencies. But I think that the court would be very concerned about just completely terminating exclusivity, because people would start sending letters and proposed plans in, and there would literally be 150 plans on file, and then you would need to sort this out. So it is, to answer your question, it's embodied in the bankruptcy code, as part of the Chapter 11 process.
Okay, thanks. I have a follow up about that. So
And one thing I'd say on that as well, and then you have your question, is I just think if this was being done in a genuine way, just like Voyager, this plan would have been out ages ago. There's games being played here.
Well,
I completely agree with that. I mean, I think that the Voyager model, I mean, maybe I rethink it at this point, but now that Mashinsky has stepped down, but in this type of case, right? I mean, there is no goodwill associated with Celsius. And Simon, you always talk about whatever plan Celsius puts forward, even if it were approved by the community, the regulators are going to go crazy over this, and it's not going to get past the regulators. And I agree with that. And I think that, the idea of trying to come up with something other than Celsius 2.0 is really probably the only viable pathway out of Chapter 11.
So that was the follow up thing I was going to say, was with Voyager taking care of this so quickly and not utilizing the 120 days. Obviously, they don't have to, because they're the ones that are putting forward the plan.
Right. I mean, you got to understand there's a distinction, and for the community on Twitter, you have to understand this about the bankruptcy process. A company can file for bankruptcy and restructure itself, and that is generally viewed as the company emerging from bankruptcy and continuing its operations. That's one path out of Chapter 11. Another path out of Chapter 11 is to just take the assets of the company and sell it to the highest bidder. That's what Voyager has chosen to do, and that's kind of what I think has to happen here. Now, and that could, and I think probably should, result in customers getting quicker access to their accounts, if a buyer comes in. And what's left in the estate, after the sale is, all the claims against management, the claim against Tether, all the litigation, and sort of sorting out how the different constituencies will be treated, under a plan, if they are not treated, under the sale. But those are two pathways out of Chapter 11, either a sale or a plan. Voyager chose to sell itself, which to me is probably the way that Celsius needs to go as well.
David, this is my last question. Do you think that there's a opportunity or potential for any sort of, I guess it'd be criminal action against any of the directors to kind of make up the whole, like, to basically come after Alex and other people that are part of the mismanagement, to make them responsible?
Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, we still got a question. We'll come to you in a bit, but we'll just answer that question.
Is your question, is there a potential criminal liability against Alex?
That would come back to help. Yes, but also
I don't think.
I think what he's asking, David, is can we force Alex to fill the hole? Which I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the community is obviously very, very upset over what he said and all of his conduct. But once a criminal proceeding is started, what happens in those cases generally is not particularly helpful to victims. The victims of Celsius really should be looking to sue Alex for fraud. And then, there's a pot of money that presumably exists under a director and officer liability policy that would go to the benefit of the people who were harmed. I wouldn't bank on, getting, that type of recovery if a criminal action were necessarily brought, because the criminal action is a different model, right? I mean, the question is whether there was criminal conduct, and restitution plays into that, but it's not really the primary focus of the United States or whoever's pursuing that action. The primary focus is obviously a conviction. So I think that civilly, pursuing civil claims against Mashinsky is the best way to get recovery to the victims.
Yeah, and again, this is what, like, the way you get, from my perspective, the maximum outcome for creditors is using the assets. If you auction off to the lowest bidder, then the equity holders of the company that buys it benefits, and we all get screwed. If you get a genuine restructuring, it ends in Chapter 7 because of the regulatory issues. We've got to get the fine line in the middle. And this is why I was excited, because the right thing to do is for Alex to step aside and then allow for a restructuring where everyone gets equity in all the key assets. And then we get to do what we did with Bitfinex and utilize the assets for all the pain that everyone's been put through. And so if Alex is still holding on, then there's another agenda there. He's protecting his own ass, and he's protecting his own assets somehow.
And can I say something else, Simon? I'll wait till you finish. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I'm done.
Now, I just wanted to say, because, again, just to educate people that, and I'm going to use you as an example, Simon. Let's suppose that Simon comes in tomorrow and says, I want to pay X dollars to buy all the assets of Celsius. There's a process that unfolds, and that process in a 363 sale is that the bankruptcy court has to set up a procedure to allow other competing bids to come in. And it's basically an auction. And the auction, or the assets, go to the highest and best price that's obtained through the auction process. So if Simon comes in and bids X, and somebody else comes in and bids X plus 100, right? I mean, the question becomes determining the highest and best bid. So it's a competitive process. It's not just that, the debtors can say tomorrow, that they're going to take the offer from somebody and be done with it. No, in a 363 sale, it has to be, an auction process.
Yeah, and the thing that I've been pushing for with Voyager is make sure you get equity out of this,
right?
Because my philosophical is not the best business decision. The best business decision is doing what Sam and FTX is doing. That's a smart business decision. If Bank to the Future was just acting like a smart business person, I wouldn't be on any of these spaces. I've been doing what Sam and FTX are doing. But the right thing, and the thing that I think ends up in the most best relationship and win-win with all creditors, is making them a stakeholder in whatever the upside is. So and that's what I've been pushing for with Voyager and with everything, and that's what worked with Bitfinex. The Bitfinex only recovered because all the customers stayed. They had a model that worked, and they made them a shit ton of money. If if you feel shafted by FTX and you're a Voyager creditor and they're just trying to buy you, you're just going to get your assets out and go. It's not, but if FTX says, all right, we'll make you equity holders to fill some of the hole, we'll give you a good recovery, and we're going to make this shit situation a good situation, then I think that's the long-term smart business, short-term shit business decision. And people keep thinking that whenever my whole investment horizon has been built upon long-term thinking and avoiding short-term thinking, and the short-term thinking is getting all the assets for cheap. The long-term thinking is allowing everyone to benefit from the assets.
Well, Simon, first of all, hi. I've been involved in, I would say, 500 bankruptcies of startup companies over the last 25 years.
Wow, 500. What do you do?
Well, I advise startup companies,
Okay.
and 90% of them fail, and many of them go bankrupt. And typically, when they do go bankrupt, the long-term equity holder creditors they get a letter 2 years on that says, hi, the bankruptcy has been settled and you're going to get $3.57, or
Exactly.
whatever, out of, out of the bankruptcy. So the first thing I would advise people to do, on the basis of my own experience, which is U.S. experience, as you know, is not to look for anything to happen quickly, because the best things are what Simon is talking about, reforming a structure and allowing that to grow. And this is, I think, what's wrong with the whole altcoin horizon. Nobody realizes that it takes actually 10 years to make the average successful company that yields back real equity. And so we can, we can be pissed, and we can, we can say we want, but the best thing to do would be take the learning and move on, and let the people who are larger holders, who have a larger stake in it, figure out how to manage the company like Bitfinex. But my God, Bitfinex is 10 years. That's a successful rebranding or re-emergence from a bankruptcy. And
No, Bitfinex, just to give we opened again within 2 weeks. Creditors were whole within 3 months, and within 9 months we were in extreme profit. It was. I'm not saying that's going to happen, because it was a very, very amazing. There was a lot of luck involved in that, as well as good structuring. But that was the most amazing process I've ever seen, and that's why I was excited about giving a plan to Alex as soon as I realized. But then I realized that there was
the best bankruptcy are the ones where the plan is in place before the filer even files, or an acceptable plan is in place upon filing. And then filing becomes sort of a regulatory process that you can just get the regulators to okay, and you have a process to emerge from bankruptcy. And if Celsius really wanted to do that, they would already have a plan in place.
Exactly. And we already gave them a plan. And the plan that leaked was an iteration on what we'd already given them, but without some of the key components.
I didn't realize that, Simon. Sorry.
Yeah, as I said, on the 2 days after my father's passing, I released myself from mourning in order to give them a plan so that they could execute it. And then it became very apparent that there were things that they needed to hide, and this process was going to be dragged out as long as possible for complete ulterior motives.
Can I ask what the current revenue streams are at Celsius right now? Is the company, is it in a good cash flow position? And
no, it's in a disaster cash flow position.
There's no revenue coming in, huh?
There is revenue, yeah. They got if you look at the financial statements, they got unprofitable mining that requires additional investment in order to make profitable, and we'll see. We don't have the full details of what's needed there. GK8 is an unprofitable business. Celsius, the lending business, is unprofitable, and so it's the ginormous cash burn. And the longer this goes for, they want us to reinvest. They're applying to sell our bitcoins so that we can invest in their new startup, and sell our stable coins now so we can invest in Alex's new startup. And this is the process that we're trying to avoid. It's a massive cash burn, like huge.
So the yield business isn't that good of a business. I mean, what they were lending out your Bitcoin and getting 4 or 5% or whatever, but it's not. That's not, because there's got to be a lot of Bitcoin.
It's an unregistered security, so they can no longer offer it.
No,
they're not a securities business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And we don't even know who's going to regulate it yet. Do we? I
We do,
mean,
yeah. If you're a bank, then it's regulated by banking regulations, where you have to put it as a liability and you have to meet Basel requirements. And if it's which it is, and if you treat it as a security, then you just do it through a traditional security structure. We've been doing securities for years. We did we've done mining back securities. We've done all these types of securities for years. We've been doing them since 2014. If you're following securities law, there's nothing, obviously, you have to get additional sign-offs, but you just go through usual process. And if you wanted to offer them to non-accredited investors, then you have to go through an S1 filing, which is what BlockFi is going through right now. There's no regulatory ambiguity here. These are securities, and you need to treat them as securities and go through the process.
It's the ones that are assuming that they're not securities that are in the regulatory.
Nexo at the moment has got every regulator on their ass because for offering unregistered securities. So the regulators told us what they want, and what they want, they don't want a business that comes out of Chapter 11 and is a sandbox and violates everything that they're trying to achieve. They just want, let's use this as a case study of showing what happens when you violate the laws and putting together a business model that operates the way we want it to operate so that everyone can copy it. That's what they want. They're not going to allow this business to come out with all sorts of innovation in a direction they don't want it to go. They just want to say these are securities. The lending is loans are loans, and they have lending licenses. Securities earn as securities, and they have securities. And if you want to issue an IOU token, that's a structured securitization. And you need ATSs and various other things in order to trade those on secondary markets. If you will do it via token, then you have to do it via a security token exchange. These things are all there. Like, we've been working on this stuff for years.
Simon, since the hole on the Bitcoin is so large, and you've looked at the books, at least remotely, years ago, whenever, was there evidence that Celsius was actually doing what they said and lending out, keeping some of the profit, giving us 80%, which was the thing that I signed up for a couple of years ago when I got involved? Because it seems like the hole could not have gotten this large if they were doing that. That it seems like the hole could only be this large if they were spending the Bitcoin willy-nilly and obviously buying the mining corporation and whatnot, or mining equipment and whatnot. But did you see evidence they were doing what they said they were doing?
I'm unable to talk about non-public information, but if you want to get an indication of how the regulators are thinking, look at the Vermont regulator and their request to appoint an examiner. They put forward evidence to say that it's a Ponzi scheme.
Right. Vermont. I meant when you first looked at the books, when Bank of the Future signed up, whatever that long ago that was, 2 or 3 years ago, whenever you first participated.
Oh, when we did the Series A funding round?
Yes.
No, we didn't get the disclosures that we would need in order to make that determination.
Okay. Hey, sorry to jump in. I think we're kind of going out of order here. Azad, if you can provide more structure into who goes next. There's definitely been a lot of newer speakers speaking before the ones that have been up here.
Yeah, sure thing, Richard. If you want to go ahead, speak.
Yes, thank you. So my first question is around Celsius. Obviously, I think it's a dead company as far as branding goes. How would the process work as far as actually getting it rebranded? Because I think Celsius existing as its own entity faces a lot of regulatory challenges, but it seems to me that it needs to either be absorbed by another company, such as FTX or even Salt Lending, or there needs to be another process set in place. So Simon, from your experience, can you speak more on that?
Yeah, new code, new brand, new regulations, new risk model is what I originally said. New management, those are all needed to get something that could come out of Chapter 11. If you get all of those together, which is why we started working on the pieces, then you need to make sure this either goes in two ways. You either get a predatory offer where someone comes along and buys it, and then equity holders in the company that buys it benefit while creditors get shafted. Or you come up with a structure like Bitfinex where you make the creditors equity holders and issue various IOU tokens that give those that were most affected by this benefit to all the assets. And so, that's what I presented to Celsius. The whole new brand and all that stuff was what came out later when I realized the level and the extent of what they disclosed in the Chapter 11 and everything and other non-public information.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. And my second question goes back to Mashinsky remaining as a director on the board. I know that the UCC is engaging in an investigation as far as like how coins were deployed and, if there's like any, hidden agenda behind that. Alex or Simon, you mentioned specifically that sometimes it's best to have, Alex remaining in some sort of leadership just because he has like a lot of company secrets that he may only know. Could there be potentially a strategic play here with him being on the board as a director, or maybe like a potential legal reason as to why he's on the board? If David, you can speak to that.
Yeah, no, I think the only reason to remain as a director is if he wants to protect his own ass again, and nothing to do with creditors is my opinion on that. I don't see a reason. If he wants to support, if I was in this shit and I created this, then I'd be on the sideline supporting the team that can get this the most fastest recovery possible. And I'd just be, I wouldn't be extracting any kind of value as that's me. I'd just be looking to support the process. However, the bit that I don't know is what it means if you've got something that you really need to hide and you need to protect. And then you start thinking about your family and your freedom and various other things. And I can't pretend to know what it's like to be in that situation. And I don't think it's right for me to speculate because, but unfortunately, that's the dynamics of the game and that's the place we found ourselves in.
Understood. Thank you. And David, you unmuted. Did you have anything to add to that?
No, I was just, I think Simon covered it. He is the largest shareholder, or I believe he's the largest shareholder. And you could see the argument sort of playing out where internally where the Kirkland is telling him that he's basically a lightning rod and needs to step down. And, this is the company that, he's been talking about for so many years. It's got to be a tough decision on his part. So somebody said it before that, the process is incremental. So obviously getting him out of the day-to-day operations of Celsius is the first step. The second step is, I've never seen the Celsius Network Limited UK bylaws, but I imagine that, there are provisions in there that, deal with people who have conflicts of interest and not voting. I'm not really sure what he can do as a director of, as a voting director in that company. I just don't know enough about it, but I fall back on the point that it's an incremental process. And if you have a person in there who's calling the shots day to day, it's progress, and we should all be happy because the lightning rod is been taken away, and hopefully this can move forward now quickly.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the insight there. One final question. So I want to be as realistic as possible as far as, when we would potentially get our, at least some of our assets back. I don't know if that's 50 or 60%, maybe less. And B, when we would actually potentially become equity holders, assuming best case scenario. It feels like, in the Voyager and Bitfinex situations, those were obviously a lot different and a lot hastier. So in your guys' experience, like how much time and obviously an estimate are we looking at as a community to where we actually see, some of our assets back, part one, and then part two, when could we potentially see some equity being deployed on a securities exchange for customers?
So I'd say it's 100% dependent upon the board. The reason I was really excited to give this update is that we might have a board that's acting a bit like Voyager, where they're trying to put together a strategy to optimize the outcome for creditors. If you think about it, what did Voyager do? Well, they said, here's our plan. And so they put out a competing bid, and then they put it to auction. And then the auction knew that they were competing with a reorg. And then once we'll see where it goes next, but that optimizes the process, and then they are incentivized to try and fill the hole as deep as possible. None of those actions are being taken. So my expectation from here, given just the one thing of whether Alex can get in the way of that process, is that we've now got a board that are just going to be optimizing that process, and we can move forward. And maybe 6 months from now, everything can be done. If we go down the alternative route, then this can drag on for years.
Yeah, I'll just add to that typically in a bank or stockbroker liquidation, the primary focus is, getting customers back a portion of their liquidity as quickly as possible. And the case is now is basically 2.5 months old at this point, and nothing has happened. And I would say really it's because of because of Mashinsky. And I would agree with Simon, but there's another factor here that could potentially delay things a little bit more, and that's the examiner. And it's one of the reasons why the borrowers actually did not really want an examiner here present in this case, because I'm not sure when there's an examiner, looking at issues, whether it's possible to really, move forward, with a plan or a 363 sale, depending upon what the examiner has to, what his initial viewpoint is. So that's one little hiccup here that needs to be considered is what the scope of the examiner is going to be investigating.
Yeah, and this is why I thought the UCC had the game right, which is, okay, get Alex to step down voluntarily. Let that process play itself out, but let's let that process play itself out after the restructuring. So I'm just hoping that we're still on track with that process.
All right. I mean, it's the reason why. I mean, if faced with the choice, when we were faced with the choice of the examiner, the motion was filed by the U.S. trustee. The borrowers would ask for a trustee, because the trustee can walk and chew gum at the same time and do the investigation and move forward with a reorg plan. Right now we're facing, a CRO for who's stepped up today or has been appointed today, but the examiner still has not been named yet. My understanding is the U.S. trustee was conducting interviews all of last week. And it just is sort of, the process could get delayed because of that. And it's just something to keep note of. Hopefully it won't.
Okay. Anyone else want to ask something?
Hi, Simon. Last week you tweeted that you expected Alex Mashinsky to resign. Why do you think he's resigned now?
I think it's because of the UCC, is my speculation. Their investigation, and they just filed something today on their recall of events. I had to quickly read it before I went live.
So they found something evidential then?
Oh, well, I mean, regulators have been investigating for this for a while. There's I'm not discussing non-public information, but even in the public information.
He's written that he elected. Do you think that was truly the case or not?
Oh, well, I mean, that's the right strategy. The right strategy is for Alex to voluntarily step down, and we work on a reorg, and all creditors get made whole. That's the optimum strategy. I don't care about anything else. Anything else is by the by. But I don't think it's a good outcome if they find all of this criminality while we're trying to restructure. I think that just ends up in a chapter 7, a worse result for everybody. So yeah,
Do you think there's benefits of him? There's benefits to Celsius, but do you think there's benefits to him resigning as the CEO, and specifically with regards to the US entities?
No, I mean he wants to complete as much. He wants to hold on to as much control as possible to control his personal freedom.
So do you think there's a? I mean, I don't know the legality around the UK side of stuff, but do you think that his lawyers have probably looked at what advantages or the legal system doesn't have the same sort of scope in the UK as it does in USA, and that's why he's remaining?
I don't want to speculate on strategy. I just know that Kirkland and Ellis are famous, and they'll be very happy for me saying this, that of getting their clients releases, and that's what they brag about. That's what they do. And Alex will have his own lawyers to work on his own personal strategy, and he'll be playing those processes. It's at this stage for him, it's family first, I believe. Family and freedom first.
Thank you.
And we're trying to do depositors and creditors first.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's bring on Celsius Loans. Celsius Loans, can you hear us? Okay, next, CL, Chris L. Lucas.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I've been following you for a while now, Simon, but my biggest concern right now is what's with the urgency right now? I expected to join this space, and I expected to be a little bit more of a positive tone, but it didn't come this way, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Yeah, we just found out, I don't know if you were on there from the beginning, but we just found out that I overlooked a bit of information, and Alex is holding on to one of his board seats. So it looks like there's still some games to be played.
Yeah, Simon Azad, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
But sorry, Celsius Loans, can I continue for a little bit longer then?
Yeah, sorry.
So, I mean, Simon, you clearly got a lot of information before we do, and I'm okay with that. I mean, you don't have to disclose all the information you have, but how has this changed anything in your mind?
What I would like to happen is for Celsius to separate itself from Alex, so we can just start focusing on how to utilize the assets for creditors in the most optimum way, without there being any other power plays or games in the way of that process. That's what we need to happen. And then Alex goes and makes himself independent from the company, and he goes through his own process. And I have no interest in his own process unless it affects creditors.
Yeah, but I mean, he clearly has a strong following, however big it is right now. But
I wouldn't say from what I can see is there's like 100 people and hundreds of thousands of victims.
You're 100% correct. No, I kind of thought this was the time when everyone came together. By the way, I'm not on Mashinsky's side. I'm not on your side. It was just more, I thought this was the time when everyone would be pulled together. But I can just in your tone as well, there's it's more urgency than I've heard before in your spaces. And I don't typically come up because I just enjoy listening to everyone and hearing people's thoughts. But it seems more urgent now. So what has changed? Has the Voyager situation had any impact on this, or is there something else that's happening? Which
Voyager's a highlight of what the process looks like when you want to do this properly. Celsius is a highlight of what the process looks like when there's other agendas. And I thought, I hope we still are. So I don't want to sound negative, but I thought that he has stepped down from all board positions, but there's still one remaining board position. So I remain skeptical. And as soon as I thought that this was the process of everybody unifying around that, and I hope we can.
In your mind, how's this going to play out then? Next 6 months, 3 months, 2 months? Given what you have and what you can say, how is this going to play out in your mind? I think a few months ago you gave like a kind of a 6-month, 1-year forecast. How's this going to play out in your mind? Given what you can say and what's been given publicly, how's this going to play out then?
Yeah, it's going to play out where either this gets caught up in loads of shit, ends up in Chapter 7, and everybody, people come along, predators come along and get assets for pennies on the dollars, or we've genuinely got a board that wants to work through a Voyager process, and we lobby alongside the UCC to use all of the assets and the fact that I'm one of the largest creditors, maximizing my own self-interest as long as everybody else who's in the same boat with me, in order to put those assets together, reorganize in a genuine way that gets it out of Chapter 11, and everyone gets to benefit from the assets and the upside.
Level set, where are we now then?
Well, I think we've made a huge step forward where the UCC has led to Alex stepping down from most of his positions. So that's out of the way. And then I just need to reserve comment on what it means with that one final board position and how that affects everything from here.
Positive or negative? Or you just don't know?
Well, I thought we were in a better position than we were until I heard that there's that one additional board position.
Okay. That's it. You can drop me down. That was my only questions. So it's pretty much a state of play which hasn't changed in the last 24 hours.
I know. I think it has changed. I just want to reserve judgment on whether this changes the way that the process is being managed and what that board seat means.
With the Voyager situation, is anyone interested in partnering with Celsius that you can say or no?
Say that again. Sorry, I was talking about Celsius. So you're talking about Voyager now?
Yeah. But with Voyager, somebody came in. Is anyone looking to come in or no?
Well, we still don't. We're months and months in, and we still don't have a well-defined process. We don't have a published reorg plan, and we don't have a process. But I know the UCC, I believe that they were spending their time on getting this victory, and then once this victory comes through, I think they're going to be pushing the reorg board to come up with a real plan, not games.
That's it. So I guess the state of play is more or less the same. A lot of uncertainty, but thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, let's bring up Celsius loans.
Yeah, hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And I don't want to jump the queue. I'll be quick. I've just posted a couple stories in the Nest for people's reference. The first one that I want to draw everyone's attention to is the thread posted 4 hours ago by Dirty Bubble Media. Everyone knows Dirty Bubble Media's history and his accuracy in laying out a lot of the scam that was Celsius and the fraud that was Alex Mashinsky. I just would like to draw everyone's attention to that thread in the Nest. I think he'll be forecasting and predicting that there's going to be more problems for Alex Mashinsky in the future. I know Cam Cruz has already brought it up previously in this space, but yeah, today's an important day that Alex Mashinsky has dropped down as CEO and that depositors are that much closer to a positive sum solution. But it is extremely important to note the nature of a scammer is to continue to scam, and the nature of a fraudster is to continue to perpetrate fraud, and that he is a director of a Celsius UK entity that is in control of approximately $1.2 billion in user funds. So it's an important day today, but I think people still need to stay focused and completely removing him from the process so that we can have a positive sum solution for everyone in this situation. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Norman. Well, let's try Bradley.
Yeah, I have two questions, one for Simon and one for David. David, I'm not sure if it was you or if it was somebody else, but a few weeks ago, someone brought up some concerns about possible conflicts of interest between the firm that was representing the UCC and the firm that was working with Celsius. Has anything changed on that front? I haven't really been looking, so I apologize if I missed something. But does the events of today of Alex stepping down change anything on that front?
I think the issue remains. It was one of the reasons why we asked for a trustee as well, because an examiner comes in and investigates and doesn't prosecute. You need to find a third party to prosecute the actions that the examiner, finds are meritorious. But it's something that can easily be worked out among the committee. I mean, I what I know is just what the UCC Council, what White and Case disclosed, and I'm certain that we're sort of in a pause period here. Well, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm wondering if you could just kind of, for those who aren't familiar with the conflict of interest concerns, if you could just briefly summarize those.
My understanding, and this is just from reading the papers, the retention papers of White and Case, is that as part of that process, they need to disclose all their connections to the debtors and people involved in the debtors, and not the lawyers who were involved in the case on behalf of the bankruptcy, but there were other lawyers at White and Case who represented Westcap, who was the lead investor in the preferred Series B issue of last year. Now, the language of the disclosure says that they were involved in some of the regulatory issues in connection with Series B and some of the due diligence issues. I don't know, that's all I know. But it seems to me that if you were representing Westcap in the Series B issue, you probably can't bring certain causes of action that the estate may have against Mashinsky and other third parties. But again, I think that's something that, and I'll preface it by saying again, I don't know I just know what I read in the papers. I don't know anything more. But the committee can decide that it's not a conflict, or the court can decide that. And even if it is a potential conflict, there could be another law firm, conflicts counsel, that could handle that on behalf of the committee. And the committee already has White and Case. They have Aiken Gump. No. Do they have? No, I don't think they have any. Aiken Gump is on the debtor side. Sorry about that. But it's something that's easily solvable.
Okay, thank you. And Simon, my question for you is, at this point in time, is there anything that we as members of the community can do to sort of push this along the path that you and I think most of us desire, which is a path that avoids Chapter 7 and involves some sort of formation of a new co? Is there anything that we can do to help out?
Yeah, so I think the optimum is there's a bunch of town halls. I think Celsius UCC, I think that's energetically a change in direction. So I think energetically there is a change in direction. And I think we need to ensure that that final board seat doesn't affect the process. And so we need to make that known. We want to go through a restructure with people whose sole incentive is to restructure this to optimize the outcome for creditors. And that's what we want. And anyone that's been engaged in activities that are going to ruin that, we need them out. We need them out of the way, because we don't want the company to be connected with any of that stuff. We need a reorg, and we need to make sure that the UCC is driving things in that direction.
Are you alluding to the fact that there might be other members of the company or even the board, other than Alex, that might kind of fall in the same category as Alex?
Yeah, I don't want to discuss non-public information, but Alex still has a board seat, and I didn't know that until we got on this.
Okay.
And that company has $1.8 billion of assets from the balance sheet I just looked at.
Okay. Thank you. I'll step down.
Okay, let's bring on next speaker, Paint Tahoe. You there?
Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you, Simon, for all the work and time you've put into this. I know it's been very inconvenient, but we appreciate your help. One question I have, I'm getting my information from YouTube personalities and yourself, Simon. And I know Rob from Digital Asset News said there was some update about possibly returning custody wallet funds up to some cap. And I haven't heard anyone mention that. And I know you mentioned the custody wallets in your live YouTube update today. Has there been an update on the custody wallets for the Celsius case?
Yeah, so in the last hearing, the judge asked all the ad hoc groups to get their shit together and figure it out. And then I think he wants to do a ruling on it in the 6th or 7th of October. I forget the day. It was apparent that it has impacts. And so, but that doesn't mean you're going to get all of the custody funds. I think last time on the last balance sheet, they were 210,000 because crypto went up. It's gone down since then. And they wanted to reserve the vast majority of it for clawbacks.
Okay. And like I said, I'm just getting my information from YouTube personalities. Is there a way to register to get more information from the UCC or updates?
They're doing their first town hall on Wednesday, so attend that.
Okay.
That's going to be on YouTube.
Okay, thank you for all your help.
Pleasure.
Simon, it's Alexander. So I have actually also Corey's on here, so I don't know if he's the real one, but I have the following question to you. Because you're also involved at long, and you know the saying, not your coins, not your keys, not your coins, and also what you said in the other space. Do you have any, or what is your estimation when this business model fell apart? Do you know when I don't want to say the P word, but when did it not get, or when did people pay other people with their yield or with their money to the yield? Do you have any any estimation? I mean, Corey figured that out, but since when was this going on? And I was there 5 years.
I mean, it's not really. I don't think that's the focus for me. You know, that's
sorry to interrupt you, but this should be the focus for you, being one of the biggest creditors.
Yeah, but what I want to do is make sure that we restructure the assets in order to get the best result for creditors. If that big P word is used, this ends in Chapter 7 from everything I've seen. And I don't think that's an optimum outcome. I think that's a secondary outcome.
Okay.
But last time I spoke with Alex, I asked him some questions that he didn't answer around the ICO, and I believe that those questions will become relevant in the future, which was from the beginning.
Simon, just one, and then I step down, because where I've come from here, again, I'm also kind of technical and try, can we even have a yield product on this open network? What I actually always saw, and I can say that because I compared it, I just wanted to have a way to hold on to the coins like all of us, get a loan, which is probably more preferable than the bank, and so paying down the yield, right? And when I compared that, currently, what I said, you live in Europe or in the UK. Since 6 or 8 years, we get 0.2% of interest, but still, when you get go over your credit card, what you're allowed to do, they charge like say 12% and stuff. And this is what I saw actually as the model in the community, being a community bank, to say, this is the loan, you pay me 2%. And I thought actually that Celsius had, because they had so many assets under control, they could really, like everybody else here thought, give you that interest. But again, the question is, since when this business model fell apart? Because we see it now, actually more and more, it was not the call out by Corey.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, So the answer to that is you need, if you're doing that in a decentralized way, then you can do all that on chain, right? Complicated. If you want to do it in a CeFi way, then you just need to combine securities laws and lending laws, comply with those laws, and then you have a product.
Yeah, again, I get this, but that's not answering the questions, because you said also that Alex asked you to put more of your user funds, which you control, into his platform.
Yeah.
So that was saying to me clear. Or also, did you just figure that out on this day, that actually the business model is currently not working? Again, since when did the business model not work?
Yeah. So if you look at my journey, I came and proposed a plan to Celsius and Alex. I was full blown. This is my client. How do I support my client in getting the best result and supporting the company like I do with all other companies I invest into? And then from that, I'm a busy person. I'm running a business. I'm not on AMAs and checking everything that happened. I'm sent lots and lots of information. And the more information I come across, the more I realize that there is really, really wrongdoing. And I just get, I start to change my approach.
Okay, I understand. So before I step down, because please just, for everybody to understand here, I'm here since 5 years. I actually always listen to dollar cost averaging and all that stuff. Then I did a dollar cost average in the wrong platform. I mean, this is 5 years. 5 years, how it seems out now. Honestly, in our crypto community space, how much did we really achieve? Thank you, guys.
Try not to confuse Celsius with our industry. Bitcoin has achieved the impossible. Bitcoin's given us digital hard sound money. And a lot of people have built lots of really interesting things around that. But yeah, don't underestimate the importance of what our industry has done. Our industry has built the foundation to give people an exit from the traditional financial system in a time when the traditional financial system is going through a really, really big change. And one of the biggest problems I've always had is when people connect it happened during Mt. Gox. Everyone said Bitcoin failed because of Mt. Gox. And that was a big problem, educating people on the difference. So please don't take this as our industry has failed. A bunch of players in our industry has failed. We've learned a bunch of stuff. We rebuild, and our industry has achieved, in my eyes, the impossible already. I exist outside the financial system today. My life is vastly different as a result of Bitcoin than my life would have been if it wasn't for Bitcoin. And that's a big achievement. To separate state and money. Obviously, you're still going to have centralized services, onboarding and offboarding, and regulations are designed in order to facilitate those processes. And now we're at that stage where regulations are going to get really, really aggressive. So we've got to get that right, and educate people slowly into the true benefit that owning your own money, spending your own money, and having money that has a fixed supply as digital hard sound money offers to the world.
Simon, I'm with you with the technology side. I'm also with you with educating people. I mean, we are now educating more people than you probably ever wanted because of all this. All I'm saying is, and again, Corey's listen here, since 5 years. So when we still are back to the 2017, where also trust was broken, right? So then this technology, I mean, being a real logical person, this means for me to be engaged in crypto, I have to think about, again, what coin will I focus on, and for sure go for cold storage.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to shill anything, but this is what retirement plan B was about. It was about diversification so that if one thing blows up, you're not affected, and separating your assets, doing asset allocation, risk management, understanding the difference between equity, yield, managing.
Simon, I get all this, but it also hurts you, right? So again, it also hurts you very badly. And now imagine all these people. I'm also diversified and all that stuff. All I wanted to say, after 5 years, we all have to figure out that if you do not hold your keys, what then? Because actually, again, everything what we are doing up is like, okay, we created financial 2.0, right? This is everything which we did not want to.
Yeah, I don't know what the point of the question is anymore. Like, are you just trying to say that we haven't done the
No,
thing?
sorry, I stepped on. No,
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
sorry, before we, you guys hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, Simon, it's coming to the 2-hour mark now.
Yep.
How long do you want to go on for?
I want to go at 2 hours. I want to hard stop at 2 hours.
All right. So should we say 8:40? I think we started about 6:40, didn't we?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Coolio. All right. I think Neo wants to say something.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, just piggyback on Alexander was saying. I think if anything, we learn know your keys, know your coin. Thank you, Corey, and everybody for encouraging people to remove the assets prior to this debacle. I still had some loans inside. And I appreciate that David is working with a loan group on that. Hopefully, we'll see good results. One question I have, and it's a very simple question, but maybe it's the most important one. Who has the keys of the coins, and what's the process of turning those keys to the Chapter 11, trustee or examiner or whatever? Who's gonna hold those keys?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the UCC, it was one of the first pieces of work that they did to ensure the security of those, and then there was a report around it. I can't remember, so much has changed and so much information, but it was one of the first things they did.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Go for it.
Okay, just real quick. The news of Alex stepping down is big news. I've been in a lot of the spaces. I've been a creditor with Celsius since 2019. Retirement age. I have my retirement portfolio, unfortunately, most of it in there. I'm just hoping that this will hopefully stop the internal, bickering going back and forth across Twitter spaces. And as most of us in this space want to come up with a solution. I just have one observation and a quick question. I'm not sure if it's even any way relatable, but I remember a few years ago, there was a problem with Uber, and the CEO was just causing a lot of conflict. He finally stepped down, and then Uber was able to go on with their business. And I don't know if they went up or down, but it's very similar because he was the founder, he created it, and at the end he had to step back. But my question now is, Simon, you mentioned today, I believe, on your YouTube about you were in favor of putting in baskets like certain valuable assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum. I believe you mentioned a stable coin. I just had one question because, it specifically is important to me and maybe others. This was an investment in Pax Gold that was supposed to be backed by gold in a London vault. They have their own website. They have their own, their own business model. And in a partnership with Celsius a while back, they agreed to give you could earn, I think, 4% or 5% on your Pax Gold. And I haven't heard that coin mentioned anywhere, anyhow. And I'm just curious because supposedly it is backed by the physical gold. So that was my question.
Yeah, I'm pretty, I haven't used that asset much, but, I'm pretty, from everything I've seen, Pax full of doing good things. And I think it's a decent collateral to consider. I don't think it was very significant. If you look down the coin report, I don't think it was a large position for Celsius.
All right. So as we've got just a few minutes remaining, can we just get one question from each speaker? I'll put GL on, and then Simon Williams will come on next. GL?
Sure, thank you. So Simon, at the end of the day, it really sounds like the UCC may or may not have that much ammunition to really help the creditors. And it seems like whether they're being compromised by White and Case's alliance with the investor from the Canadian pension fund, this is making me get even more angry because you've got as much money, if not the most money, that the UCC should be protecting. So how are you, I hate this term, lighting a little fire under their ass to either they need to maybe be scrutinized? Should the judge get involved and say there is a conflict of an interest? Should possibly the UCC board members get a little bit more mixed up? It just doesn't seem like anyone's real focus is us. And I know they're having a town hall tomorrow, but we know that's going to be a bunch of crap. And I'd love to talk with you to see what really gets resolved and answered, because they're going to cherry pick the questions that we're tweeting. So it's not interactive. I don't think I'd even call it a town hall. It's going to be, they're going to sort of shut us up and say what the next step is. But it just sounds like everything you keep revealing, there's way too much nefarious lack of activity or activity going on that's either protecting Alex if he stepped down and his lawyer said, yeah, you get to still say that you're the director of the Celsius Ltd, but we'll make you step down as CEO for optics. Like, who's managing that and who's not calling a foul ball here? Whose responsibility should it be?
So I guess it's up to the community to point these things out. But as I said, I am engaged with the UCC. I have been throughout this process, and I haven't really been focused on that particular issue. I've just been focused on progressing.
But how are you making your voice get heard? I don't understand. What I get, you have access to them, but what are you able to say? And there's no reason you can't reveal what you're saying, because it's about a concern you have as a creditor.
That wasn't me. I think that was David that pointed that out. So this isn't something I've been pushing at all, the conflicts.
So who should do that then?
Well, I mean, if it becomes a particular issue, then it's something I can try and bring up. But I think
Let's talk about the White and Case situation. That seems like a pretty obvious conflict right there.
I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, it's the judge retained White and Case, meaning that that according to the judge, he felt satisfied that the conflict did not impair White and Case's retention. We're talking about an issue, that would come up really, after the examiner's investigation. I mean, the examiner is going to be looking at, these issues that I think flow back to Series B or Westcap or whatever. So I don't think it's really necessarily something that's up at the front of the case. I really do think that, I'll say this, that I think what the committee should be focused on, and I've said this to them, is ways that they can augment the estate right now. Okay, so there's, you look at the coin report, you see what the assets are, you see what the liabilities are. And the question really in my mind is, what causes of action exist right now that can be investigated and pursued to enlarge the estate? And I think there was an excellent article early on at the beginning of the case, probably around July 20th in the Financial Times, about Tether. If you all probably recall, the Tether loan was like $900 million. And the question is did Tether properly perfect their security interest in that loan? Because if they didn't, the debtor can, or the committee, if they get standing, can move to basically recover that loan, the loan payback of $900 million. I think that, and the claims, against third parties, other claims, are things that should be focused on. There was that disclosure in the Mashinsky affidavit that was filed on the first day about, people say that it's First Equities. That First Equities owes Celsius something like $439 million or $493 million. That type of stuff is what, in my view, the committee should be focused on at this moment, in addition to, finding a restructuring plan that works, and getting customers access to their liquidity as soon as possible. But that and pursuing third-party claims are, to me, the two most important objectives of the committee.
So then what would keep the UCC, what's the legal reason they don't want to communicate with their customer, which is the depositors? Why and what is preventing them from opening their mouth and revealing updates? Because we've been in the dark for like over 3 months.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I think there was a message from the UCC. I don't know if we can read that one out. Anthony, you're still a speaker, aren't you? Let's get Anthony up.
Yes, I can read that tweet from Celsius UCC.
Yeah.
So Celsius UCC is hearing questions about Alex remaining as a director of Celsius Network Ltd. CNL's board of directors has a special committee of 2 directors to oversee all restructuring issues. Alex is not on the special committee. Tune in Wednesday at noon ET for more Q&A.
Okay, so here's your answer. The UCC are listening to these spaces. So say what you need to say. The UCC is listening and they're tweeting in real time. And then they're going to do it, address it on the town hall. So you have a voice.
Yeah, and I'll say one last thing, which is what I've said a million times. I think it's hard, speaking as someone who's represented committees, to speak to all the creditors, because a lot of times you're in possession of non-public information and you don't want to reveal strategy. And, the more the community fights with or starts pointing fingers at people, the worse I think it is. And I think we should all be happy today that Alex is gone, and we should focus on the future, which is hopefully restoring liquidity to the customers as soon as possible in some measure, number one. And number two, going after claims that don't, in the first instance, that don't involve customers. So like I said before, Tether, the claims, all those things that got liquidated in June during the pause, First Equities, things like that, to augment the estate, which will, enhance all creditors' recoveries.
Great.
Okay, let's bring on Simon Williams, who's been waiting for over an hour. So thanks for your patience there, Simon.
No, thank you. And off the top, Simon, a big thank you from Canada to you and your team for fighting this fight with us and for us. It's really helped to deal with the loss and the exposure here. I'm going to park my question and instead offer a few hopeful observations, since I think I may have the last speaking slot here, just regarding the Mashinsky holding on to this sole remaining directorship, because I kind of felt the wind seep out of your sails there, Simon. So,
you did. You noticed the energy difference.
Yeah,
right?
I did. And so not legal advice, but I'm a structured finance attorney in Canada and practice in New York. So, it sounds like UK law, corporate law is relevant here, but I've pulled up the UK statute that I think is relevant, the Companies Act. I just wanted to point out, directors and officers are not the same thing. Officers run the day-to-day operations of the company. Directors typically sit on a board.
Is anybody speaking?
Yeah, they are. You may not be able to hear us. Carry on, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And so a board of directors presides over the high-level decisions of the company, which would include a plan, but typically that's a majority vote to carry that decision. And it looks like the UK corporate statute does require any director who has a conflict of interest to declare that interest and abstain from any vote. And so, to the extent this is, a vote comes regarding a potential plan, it's hard to imagine Alex having a bigger conflict of interest as a shareholder, founder, et cetera. So I don't, and again, not legal advice, remains to be diligenced, but I don't see him being able to stonewall, a plan moving forward just based on this sole directorship. I don't think he'll be able to vote. That's all. And
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Simon. Hey, can we have Jeff speak? Jeff's a soldier on Twitter. Did you want to say anything, Jeff?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me, Simon?
Hey, good to hear your voice.
Yeah, good to hear you too. So I just wanted to let you know that just a few minutes ago, the UCC posted a message about Alex still being on the board of directors. And so I'll just read it to you because I think this might relieve some of the concerns. It says, Celsius UCC is hearing questions about Alex remaining as a director of Celsius Network Limited, CNL's board of Network Limited, period. CNL's board of directors has a special committee of 2 directors to oversee all restructuring issues. Alex is not, in capital letters, NOT, on the special committee. Tune in Wednesday at noon for more Q&A. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, because I know there's a lot of concern about that, but the UCC at least doesn't seem to be concerned.
Okay, awesome, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that. We did share it in a bit, but I think that's a really good place to end, really, because I think I started on a high. I missed an important detail. We worked through the detail, and we have a town hall tomorrow, and hopefully we've highlighted anyway that this is a key thing for clarification. And it sounds like, both from the lawyer not giving legal advice and from the UCC, that this has been thought through. And hopefully this puts us back to high energy, which is where we began this process. I'll be doing another AMA on Friday at the usual weekly spot. And keep fighting the good fight, everybody. I do think that this was significant progress. Let's get that clarity on that additional detail. And I'm hoping still that this is the beginning of a new process. And energetically, I feel like I can cooperate a lot more with all the people that are needed in order to make something happen. And I'll keep updating and walking that tightrope between what I can say, what I can't say. And I'm still 100% committed to making sure that we get those assets that are used in the interest of creditors. And I'll see you all on the next AMA on Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Simon.